Ladies and gentlemen, one final time, let's rank the rookies for 2025 in Dynasty, and let's start with the S tier. He's made it all the way through from, when did we start ranking these guys? Last October. No, October?
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, from October to
now.
August, in the S tier, alone by himself, Ashton Genty.
Yeah.
Give it up for him, ladies and gentlemen. Nothing's changed here. Went top 10. Great situation. Nothing to say. Next year.
So the A tier, I think we're very confident and have been confident in for a while now, but it's pretty much Hampton, Tet, Hunter, and that's it. You can, if you wanted to take Hunter or Tet McMillan over Amari and Hampton, we would be fine with it because I think their value upside is equivalent to Hampton. We prefer Hampton. I honestly toyed with Hampton being in a tier of his own in the A tier, but again, we've just seen too many times in a good number of startup drafts, they always go pretty close to each other, like within a half to a full round of each other, and there's always some variance there on like who ends up going on top. Hampton, over some stretches, has like separated himself a little bit. He'll be the guy that more consistently than Tet or Hunter will go like late second, but he'll fall sometimes too as well, going back to back with these other guys. But again, with each of their respective situations, Hampton is in a Greg Roman offense. He's going to be wildly productive, I think, this year as a rookie. Tet McMillan is a wide receiver one in his own offense. He already looks pretty insane with the connection that he has with Bryce Young. And then Travis Hunter is probably going to be run out of the slot, and it looks like he's going to be more of a wide receiver playing almost all the snaps on the offensive side of the ball, and more of a gadget like schematic play who's a backup corner or backup DB on the defensive side of the ball. So that's really, really good for fantasy purposes. We like all these guys in their upside.
All right, Nathan's just giving me all the guys with one tier here. Henderson is in his own tier in the B tier. With Trayvon Henderson, obviously he's been on the receiving end of a lot of hype in the preseason as well. You'll remember I took in our first video draft that we did the weekend of the NFL draft, I actually took Henderson at 3, I think,
yeah.
right? Yeah, It was Genty, Hampton. I took him over Tet and Hunter. In hindsight, actually doesn't look too bad right now. All three of these guys, really, Tet, Hunter, and Henderson, are all going around the same place. In fact, you can make an argument to put Henderson in the A tier if you wanted to, and we wouldn't necessarily argue that. I think his dynasty value's gotten a little bit of a bump recently, but Henderson projects well. I think he's already taking over that backfield, and I think he's, by the end of the year, going to have a 60-40 split at backfield, if not 65-35. We know what he can do in open space. He's set up to be a very good dynasty asset for your team these next couple of years. No, my turn. C tier, Egbuka. Egbuka's been one of the biggest risers in dynasty fantasy football from a rookie standpoint over the past month.
Oh, you're stealing my words.
And we kind of saw this coming when we realized that Chris Godwin probably wasn't going to be available for the beginning of the year. And his dynasty value, if you look at it, has just consistently gone up. And so with Emeka Egbuka, he is somebody that has gotten a ton of talk during training camp as someone who can be productive and have an impact right away. If that's true, his dynasty value is going to go up right away too. He's already closing the gap in dynasty. You're already seeing the gap close between like the A.J. Brown, Rome Odunze, T. Higgins tier and Emeka Egbuka. He is creeping up towards that tier. You're seeing him now go at the end of the 4th round. I don't know what his ceiling is, but I do know that this is a wide receiver talent that I'd be willing to bet on because I think he's very safe in Dynasty. Tyler Warren also has been creeping up draft boards a little bit in Dynasty Fantasy Football, and it's pretty obvious the Colts are going to use him and feature him pretty much exclusively in that offense. You're talking about playing with Josh Downs, playing with Michael Pittman, and throughout the preseason, I think there was a more concerted effort to get Tyler Warren the ball than any of those guys, right? Obviously, Josh Downs been out with injury. Daniel Jones being the starting quarterback there, at least short term for his production value, I think makes Tyler Warren someone that you'll be able to start at tight end on your dynasty team this year and in tight end premium leagues, and you'll feel good about it. And so he's been moving up boards, and right now I think he's cemented himself as the tight end one currently in this class, right next to the QB1 Cam Ward. Cam Ward still continues to go at a very cheap price for somebody who, again, was the 101 in the NFL draft. But Cam Ward, I mean, even throughout the preseason, I think we've really only heard positive things about him. I think most of the things you've heard about Cam Ward in a positive nature are the culture things and the personality things and just how composed he is and how hard of a worker he is. And that's always something you want to hear. I think if you see him have an immediate impact early in his career, I think his dynasty value jumps around very quickly. And so we'll still be aggressive with ranking Cam Ward because, again, he was a quarterback. We are ranking for super flex leagues, and he was the 101 in the NFL draft. And so all three of these guys right now have been kind of preseason risers, and all of them we expect to maintain their value or increase their value going into the season.
D tier is where it kind of gets quite a bit muddy, honestly, and pretty subjective. But we are going to start with a few running backs, RJ Harvey and Quinshon Judkins, to start here. I think obviously the legal stuff with Judkins has resulted in him falling quite a bit. He saw that value spike when the charges were dropped. came down and back a little bit to earth again when we realized that we have to wait for the NFL to do their investigation before he signs his rookie deal. A lot up in the air for production this season for Judkins, but still long term he's a second round pick with second round draft capital, and hopefully the running back one long term for the Browns. RJ Harvey, second on the depth chart right now, backing up J.K. Dobbins. I don't think that will last super long, whether it's by injury because Dobbins gets injured every single year, or just sheer talent. He's got a better receiving skill set than Dobbins does, but regardless, I think both of those guys can produce in this offense. Second round DC makes him nice and insulated. Matthew Golden, Avery and I's favorite player in the NFL at the moment. I think he's going to pop off. He's been a big training camp riser, honestly, as well. And like in all seriousness, all jokes aside, he's looked pretty solid, and I think he has a good chance. Again, we knew this heading into this season that he had a good chance of taking over that number one role because it's the first round wide receiver that Gutekunst has taken a shot on literally like ever. I think there's the first round wide receiver that they've taken a shot on in like over 20 years.
Yes, yeah.
So something crazy like that. They're going to give him opportunity this year. It's just a matter of how well will he develop because he is truly a raw prospect. Caleb Johnson, not a lot of positive news coming out of camp from Steelers camp with Caleb Johnson, but I haven't heard anything like insanely negative on the depth chart. He is, I think, did he take over Gainwell yet, or is he still third? He might be second behind Warren. I have not double-checked that, honestly. But what I do know is that what he's shown in preseason so far is that he looks kind of slow, but he's pretty efficient. He's second now on the depth chart, so he bumps up a spot, which is good for him because even just last week he was third. Colson Loveland we're also going to have in this tier. I think Colson Loveland has just kind of stayed. His value has been probably the most consistent among rookies this entire offseason since the NFL draft. And I think you're looking at a guy who's probably going to see a little bit of a value dip as the season begins because he's going to take a little bit of time to get consistent opportunity, given how crowded that receiving room is. But long term with the draft capital and as DJ Moore is potentially phased out long term, I think you're going to look at him getting more and more opportunity. He could surprise this year as well. Maybe he's the next Sam Laporta. Jackson Dart has been another very big riser. He's shown a lot of really good flashes in camp. The reason we're going to have him in this tier is number one, he's rising big time, and number two, Ryan Brett actually has been working on a quarterback version of the bakery. And did you see Jackson Dart's bakery score?
Yeah.
He's in a very, very high hit rate tier, actually a tier above Cam Ward, and it's because of how good and efficient of a passer he was in college. That kind of encouraged us big time heading into this season. So he's not going to start right away, but I think a lot of people in Dynasty are going to be intrigued enough to take a shot on him, and I think he'll be a riser regardless when he gets his opportunity this year, which will be most likely sooner rather than later. And then Luther Burden, again, very similar to Colson Loveland. People are just willing to take the shot on him because as an analytical wide receiver, he's got a good profile. And yeah, it's crowded in that room, but long term, again, they drafted him for a reason. They were looking for a running back in the first round. They were looking for a running back in the early second, and they couldn't get any of their guys, and Burden just fell into their laps, and they had to take the shot there. I think at the end of the day, we need to stop discounting talent and bet on talent transcending because it has in multiple situations over the last couple of years.
Moving to the F tier here, obviously Scatterboo has had a little boo-boo himself, boo-boo on his hamstring, and so that's not been obviously great news. We predicted he would probably... He's back, but he's, him being hurt throughout training camp has pretty much allowed Tyron Tracy to be like, yeah, I'm going to take this starting job now, which is kind of unfortunate because we thought it would be Scatterboo at first, and obviously the injury's not going to help that. And so, Scatterboo, we still are confident that he's going to have a role there. It's just a matter of how soon that role actually increases to a point where he's fantasy relevant. Jaden Higgins, man, I see a lot of people very high on Jaden Higgins. Zach is very high on Jaden Higgins. I don't dislike Jaden Higgins as a prospect. Obviously, if Nico Collins goes down, I think he's going to be the guy there. But, it's not like he had a bulletproof prospect profile, and that's kind of where I'm at with Jaden Higgins. I get it. I just am not quite sure he's going to be fantasy productive this year, but we will see. If he's not, he's probably going to lose value this year. But he obviously still went early second, got the biggest, I think, contract any second rounder has ever gotten, on most guaranteed money or something like that. And so that's not nothing. And then the guy you all want to talk about. Bill.
Yes!
Bill Krosky-Merritt. Yeah, he jumps most of the guys that went in the second round this year in rookie drafts. Why? Because there's been a ton of hype. There was a ton of hype about Corey Krosky-Merritt before Brian Robinson was even thinking about being traded. A ton of it. And people are like, hey, this guy's good. He may not be the starter this year. He might, but he will be eventually. That's what we're hearing. And then the Commanders were like, you know what? Let's just do it
Screw
now.
B-Rob.
Let's just do it now. B-Rob, 6th-round pick.
Yeah.
We don't even want you anymore.
They're going to let him walk anyways. May as well
And I
get the
think a
capital.
big part. I don't think they're doing it for Austin Eckler. If they were, why didn't they do it last year?
Right.
I think they're doing it for Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt. And so yeah, I mean, a lot of people are asking like, hey, should I trade Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt for a second? A singular second? No, definitely not a 27. Like his upside's worth holding there. Like if he's getting a starting job in his rookie year as a running back, he's worth holding. Like, am I trading him for a first? Probably not trade him for a first.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to do it just for a second. I'm going to hold him at that point. And so he works his way up here and he ends up in the F tier of our Dynasty rankings. And we can rank your entire team as well. We actually just announced that we have Infinite Blueprint coming out every single week during the season. If you're an annual Motherflocker with code domain over on the site, you can get access to this. Nathan and I will review your team, give you your team archetype, your 3-year outlook, give you all the suggested moves for your Dynasty team going into the season, and then you're going to receive an Infinite Blueprint for that team every single week delivered straight to you, so you can have updated moves and updated advice for your Dynasty team. So you can find it at flockfantasy.com/domain. Use code domain. Annual Motherflocker tier, again, is what unlocks it. If you don't do the season pass doesn't come with the team review. Annual Motherflocker tier code domains our Dynasty player package that comes with everything that you need to win your Dynasty fantasy football leagues.
G1 and G2 tiers, rank them however you want. I'm just going to list them all up here. It's a big tier. We don't care where you want these guys to go. Jack Besh, Pat Bryant, and Trey Harris, a big grouping of wide receivers here. Besh, obviously the 2nd round pick that Vegas wanted to take a shot on this season. You will see later in this year, though, we also have Dante Thornton, who was a 4th round pick, but he's been making more noise, having more buzz than Besh. I will say an interesting thing is that Dante Thornton actually has, in terms of the analytical tiers on the bakery, is a couple tiers ahead of Jack Besh, despite having lesser draft capital. He was a better, more efficient wide receiver in college than Besh was. So all eyes on both of these guys as Jacoby Myers is looking to potentially hold out, asking for a trade because he wants an extension. I think at the end of the day, they're probably going to get something done with him that's mutually beneficial. But that still does worry you in terms of like, hey, is he going to be all in on Vegas and contributing into that offense if he doesn't get an extension before the season starts? We're not that far away from week 1 happening. So I think it will be interesting to see like how the target distribution looks for these guys. But I think schematically, you're going to see Dante Thornton on the field more consistently than you will with Jack Besh. Thornton will probably be more boom bust. If Besh kind of works his way up the depth chart, then he could be a more consistent target volume guy. Another interesting thing to note with the Besh and Thornton stuff is, and actually the Jacoby Myers stuff, is that Amari Cooper just signed a 1-year deal with the Vegas Raiders. I personally don't really think this impacts anyone there. I think Cooper has kind of washed at this point. People might worry about that in terms of like a crowded wide receiver room. I honestly think they did this as insurance in case they do end up trading Myers. So just something to keep an eye on there. Pat Bryant. It's a wide open wide receiver room in Denver. He's been getting a lot of solid news outside of training camp. Again, nothing insane, but you've heard a lot of high praise from Sean Payton. Him obviously giving a Michael Thomas comps, which again, you take all that stuff with a grain of salt. It's a head coach hyping up one of his rookie picks, but there truly is a wide open room there for Pat Bryant to potentially be successful. I don't think anyone expects Marvin Mims to really take a step up. He's more of a consistent deep threat or inconsistent deep threat. And then you have Troy Franklin, who was a darling last year because of his connections with Bo Nix back in college. He's not going to be doing much either. So Pat Bryant will be interesting this year. Trey Harris, I honestly just don't see a huge avenue for him to be consistently productive. Obviously, you have Keenan Allen coming back for what we would expect kind of a retirement deal. But you do have that predetermined or pre-established connection with Justin Herbert that might be significant and take away even more opportunity from Harris if there was any to begin with. But he does have 2nd round draft capital, a decent analytical profile, so we have to respect that. So Bashul Tutin, actually alongside in the bakery, alongside Cam Scatterbo, I think they were the 2 top graded day 3 running backs ever in the bakery in their respective tier. But I will say it's looking like a 3-back committee, honestly, in Jacksonville this season. One of those guys may transcend, or it could end up just being ugly all year. Hopefully Liam Cohen can end up helping those guys. One of those guys be productive consistently. We don't really know, but Tutin not going to start the season as the starter. It's looking like maybe Bigsby, maybe Etienne, a split between those two. They honestly haven't been super clear, but we'll see what he can do long-term throughout the course of the season and kind of maybe establish himself and get a little more consistent opportunity there. Isaac Tesla, we got to give him his respect at this point. He's been a big riser in what's looking like a super crowded offense. I mean, as much noise as Jamo's been making, I feel like he does every training camp, as much noise as everybody else in that offense always does. I think if Tesla ever gets an opportunity to be on the field, he could potentially produce close. I do think like he is one injury away, but from a dynasty perspective, there's always going to be like the mystery of what Tesla could be if he ever is a starter there. And that's something that I just think the market is going to always be curious about with Tesla, since he was so productive in training camp and has been making so much noise. That'll be something that we'll want to keep an eye on. Jaden Blue got a little banged up in the last preseason game, but he did show some nice flashes, got some opportunities in the red zone. He's a speedy guy, has some receiving upside and capabilities. That's probably going to be a 3-back committee unless Dallas decides to trade for someone last second. But again, another guy that we're going to be eyeing. Terrence Ferguson has really not made much splash news at all in training camp, and honestly with Devontae Adams and Puka Nacua being the main top 2 targets there, like I don't know how much more you're going to see someone like just come in and be crazy productive like a Terrence Ferguson. We'll see. We still like him in his profile though, and they took a pretty high 2nd round shot on him. Tyler Shuck looks like he's not going to be the starter heading into week 1 for New Orleans, but I think it's only a matter of time. He looked pretty solid in training camp and in the preseason. And then Jalen Knoll is also going to have to work his way up the depth chart, as Nico Collins is the top option there. Jaden Higgins showed some decent flashes in the preseason as well. Jalen Knoll is probably more of like a deep threat potentially. I don't know. Maybe he runs out of the slot. I honestly don't know like schematically what he's going to end up doing there. I'm not sure if Houston knows. So that's going to be up in the air long term, but we'll see if he can kind of break the odds and overcome his 3rd round draft capital.
Let's go to the age tier now. A guy that has gotten a lot of hype during training camp and preseason is Torrey Horton. And we did know when Torrey Horton was drafted to the Seahawks that, yes, they did bring in Cooper Kupp, who we believe is not going to be fantasy relevant or at least good in fantasy this year. We did know that Torrey Horton actually does have the opportunity to be the starting wide receiver 3 in Seattle. And actually, I think he's probably going to be at this point. Torrey Horton, obviously a decent college prospect, obviously had a decent profile as well in the bakery. Somebody we had in our sleepers video, a couple times, and now it looks like he's at least going to be on the field. I wouldn't be surprised if Torrey Horton was at least scoring some fantasy points this year, which could make him a nice little buy low in Dynasty because you might see a little value spike for Torrey Horton at some point soon. Mason Taylor. Look, I don't think Mason Taylor has done a whole lot this offseason at all. In fact, on the depth chart for the Jets, Jeremy Rucker is listed as the 1st string at tight end right now, Mason Taylor 2nd, which again, Mason Taylor could easily overtake him, but I don't feel like you've heard a ton of noise from Mason Taylor, and obviously a guy we weren't drafting a ton of in your rookie drafts as well, but he still is, a decent prospect in a decent situation. So, Kyle Williams, I have no reason to rank him aggressively. No reason. He's not done anything. He's in a wide receiver room where any rookie with any talent and the opportunity that they've been given would shine. And that's why he's in the same tier as Efton Chisholm, because Efton Chisholm was a no-name prospect who didn't get drafted that came in and has actually made the most splash in that room, while Kyle Williams, who was drafted by the Patriots, hasn't done squat yet. That he's had some days at training camp where he's had some big plays. But outside of that, beat reporters are like, yeah, this guy's been pretty quiet in camp. It doesn't mean that he's not going to be anything. It doesn't. But I'm just saying, in terms of what we know so far, Kyle Williams is the type of prospect that you should expect to hear something about in preseason. And we've heard nothing about it. And so I would have liked to have heard more. Ollie Gordon, we have to move up a little bit. Obviously, his analytical profile was very bad. But you'll remember, Ollie Gordon, when he was at Oklahoma State, the second to last year that he played in college, he was incredible. And his profile was incredible. And you'll remember, we ranked him a year ago this week. We ranked him very aggressively.
I think over Genti.
I
think that was consensus.
Because he was that good.
Yeah.
So it's not like we don't think, we didn't know Ollie Gordon has the talent. But if you've watched Ollie Gordon during the preseason for the Dolphins, he's just straight up been good. He straight up looked like a good running back. And, Ollie obviously isn't going to overtake Achane as the receiving back there, which is going to cap his ceiling a little bit in Dynasty, especially from a production standpoint. But I think he's the running back 2 there. And that's a very valuable running back 2 handcuff to have, sitting behind Devon Achane in that offense. Woody Marks looks like the running back 3 or 4 right now in the Houston Texan offense. Look, Woody had a bad analytical profile, so he was a little bit of a fade for us. He does have the opportunity. He's getting beat out by Nick Chubb, and Nick Chubb is essentially playing on crutches right now. That's really what's happening here. He's getting beat out by Dameon Pierce when he's on the field. He's getting beat out by Agumbawale, I think is how you say his name. At that point, you really probably aren't super excited. Look, Marks, I think, has had some flashes during the preseason where I thought he looked pretty good. Fact of the matter is, I think in this situation, he should be elevating the depth chart here very soon, or I would start to wonder about him a little bit. Dylan Sampson, obviously, you could rank Dylan Sampson a little bit higher than this, and I'd be okay with it. But obviously, this tier feels right. Right now, it's going to be him or Jerome Ford starting in Cleveland. Now, the problem is, while that gives him a short-term boost in terms of his dynasty value, long-term, you see where we still have Quinshon Judkins, because Quinshon Judkins is going to be the starter there, y'all. They didn't draft him. He's not going to get signed. They didn't draft him, just, let the off the field stuff fester and, not sign him. So because of that, Dylan Sampson, while he may see a little value spike now, long term, I don't think you're going to see him give up that starting role or give up serious touches. I think that you're going to see Quinshon Judkins take that, essentially. Jarquez Hunter, another guy that really, the Rams loved him. He hasn't done anything in camp. Hasn't done anything. They've been playing him every preseason game. They have not rested him with any of the starters. You've got lots of teams around the NFL resting multiple running backs. The Rams have not been one of those teams. And so Jarquez is really fighting it out with Blake Corliss, who's going to get the 10% of snaps that Kyren Williams doesn't have. Because as we know, Kyren Williams is going to be on the field most of the time. And so that's going to really make it hard for Jarquez Hunter to be fantasy relevant. DJ Giddens. I think DJ Giddens is a very valuable handcuff to have. I have heard things about DJ Giddens in camp, and he doesn't have the draft capital that some of the guys in this range have, but in my opinion, he has a better profile. I love DJ Giddens. He was my guy. I've talked very highly about him, and it's January. I think if JT goes down, you're going to see the breakout. I think if JT were to go down, the Colts would be like, oh, wow, look what we got in this guy. I'm very high on DJ Giddens. I think he's a great handcuff. I think Trevor Etienne's a good handcuff, but it looks like Rico Dowdle is the running back 2 there right now in Carolina, and so you have to kind of temper your expectations for him, at least short term. And then the guy I already mentioned, Efton Chisholm, man. You guys were begging for us to talk about him for quite a while, and we basically were just like, yeah, we're going to ignore you. Well, this is why we're stupid. Because we probably should have listened. Because if we would have listened to you, we probably would have beat everybody to the punch on this guy, and we would have called it before he actually did what he did in the preseason. But we're stupid, and we didn't listen to you. So I'm very sorry we're stupid. But Efton Chisholm looked good in the preseason. The dude is Julian Edelman reincarnated, it looks like. Have you seen this? The dude, he looks like he's this big on the field, and he's breaking tackles. Like, he's making his plays because he's breaking tackles and getting first downs. He's breaking tackles and getting into the end zone. He's a tough Moflo. I like Efton Chisholm. I hope he does well. Obviously, I drafted him in the Flock League, so I'm rooting for that guy last year.
So with the I tier, these are literally just a bunch of crapshoots. Ellick is a day 3 wide receiver, and it's a wide open wide receiver room. He's got a lot of medical red flags. That's why he was drafted later than expected. He was mocked consistently in the early second round. He would have had a better bakery profile if he got better draft capital. But we'll see if he can do anything as a rookie with Cam Ward, Jordan James. That running back room just got more crowded. It's now Garendo, Elijah Mitchell, B-Rob, and Jordan James behind Christian McCaffrey. He's going to have to work his way up the depth chart, if he ever wants any opportunity. A couple tight ends, Arroyo, Gadsden, they got to work their way up the depth chart as well. Arroyo had some early offseason hype, and he's kind of sizzled out a little bit since then. Jalen Royals, he's getting a little bit of noise. He was getting noise before. That's a crowded wide receiver room, but Sky Moore gets moved, which is one less mouth to feed, if that was a mouth to feed at all. Keandre Lambert-Smith, also kind of a hype guy in the Chargers offense. If he were to get any sort of relevant opportunity consistently, he would have to basically take over Harris and Quentin Johnson, which is possible. Neither of those guys are a guarantee. Brashard Smith, and then Shadur Sanders, Kyle Monangai, Harold Fannin, and Devin Neal. Honestly, all of these guys are essentially honorable mentions. They're all going to have to work their way up the depth chart. These are depth chart guys who are not just one injury away. They're a couple injuries away to getting any sort of relevant opportunity whatsoever. So I think the odds are kind of against all these guys in the I tier, but I feel like every year some guy transcends situation and just comes out and exceeds expectations. So we don't want to write these guys off. They're definitely taxi stash guys.
So there you go. Again, it's been a great ride with this rookie class, but
it was a lot of fun.
This was a great offseason with rookies, but now it's time to move on. It's time to get to the season. And so appreciate it if you drop a like, make sure you're subscribed. And again, if you want to get a blueprint from Nathan and I for your Dynasty Fantasy Football team, telling you exactly what you should do to make sure you're winning your championship this offseason, make sure you go to flockfantasy.com/domain. Use code domain. Again, annual Mother Flocker tier to unlock, and you can also get access to our weekly Infinite Blueprint coming out during the season. We appreciate you guys. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you later.